All right, so Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton is having a pretty rough week right now, as it just came out that the Texas State House decided to impeach him over just an insane litany of potential alleged crimes. Okay, so first I want to start off with what the 20 articles of impeachment were that were filed against him. Then we're going to get into what the actual result was from the House impeachment and then what's going to come from there. And then also some of the leaders within the Democratic or within the Republican Party, including Donald Trump and Ted Cruz, a senator from Texas, coming out to defend him even after all of these allegations have been made public for interesting reasons. So here to start us off, again, the 20 articles of impeachment against State Attorney General Ken Paxton filed Thursday night in the Texas House, which accused the Republican official of a range of criminal acts that the full Texas House will be asked to vote upon. And again, they successfully impeached him in the House. It's then going to go on to the Senate, and we'll see what happens from there. It seems like he has a lot more allies in the Senate that may or may not end up protecting him, which makes the situation even more ridiculous because, as you're going to see, it seems like it's a pretty open and shut case. So they say that Representative Andrew Murr, a Republican who leads the House General Investigation Committee, which recommended that Paxton be impeached, told House members that the articles allege grave offenses. Okay, so I'm just going to show you guys like half of these 20 charges just so you can get a little bit of a picture of what Ken has been up to over the last couple of years. So they say Article 1 of impeachment, disregard of an official duty. Paxton violated the duties of his office by failing to protect a charitable organization by directing employees to intervene in a lawsuit between the nonprofit called Mitt Foundation and Austin real estate investor Nate Paul, a Paxton friend and political donor. They say Paxton harmed the Mitt Foundation in an effort to benefit Paul, the resolution said. Now, this guy, Nate Paul, is sort of like the key figure or the main figure in most of these articles of impeachment, so remember that as we're continuing on here, because it wasn't just him sort of pressuring a case that benefited this guy, Nate Paul, and harmed this charitable organization. I mean, it goes a lot deeper than that. So they go Article 2, again, disregard of an official duty. Paxton misused his official power to issue written legal opinions to help this guy Paul avoid foreclosure sales of properties owned by Paul and his businesses. Okay, so it seems like this guy is a sort of developer who also may work in tandem with the government on certain projects. I mean, this is something that you could apply to a lot of different state and local governments, is that a lot of these politicians will be buddy-buddy with a lot of these major developers or even corrupted by them and accepting sort of bribes from them behind the scenes, and that's just sort of like the baked-in corruption that we have at every level here in the United States. But they say that Paxton concealed his actions by soliciting State Senator Brian Hughes to seek the Attorney General's opinion as a straw requester, the resolution said, adding that Paxton also directed employees to reverse their legal conclusions in ways that helped Paul. I mean, he's being pretty egregious about this, right? You would think that maybe he would understand that this is inevitably going to come out and maybe catch up to him, or maybe he just doesn't give a shit because he thinks that his allies within either the state Senate or his broader political allies at the national level are going to come in and save his ass. But, okay, Article 3, again, the same thing. Paxton misused his official power to administer the state's public information laws by directing employees to act contrary to the law on an open records request for the Department of Public Safety documents in another unspecified case. Article 4. Paxton misused his power to administer public information laws to obtain previously undisclosed information held by his office for the purpose of providing the information to the benefit of Nate Paul. I mean, does Nate Paul like have something on Ken Paxton? Because pretty much all of these are him going like above and beyond to specifically break the law to help this guy in a numerous, a myriad of different ways. But they say Article 5, Paxton misused his official powers by violating the laws regarding how outside attorneys should be appointed. Paxton hired Brandon Kamak, a lawyer of 5 years, to investigate a baseless complaint made by Paul, who had accused federal and state investigators of improperly searching his home and businesses. Kamak responded by issuing 30 grand jury subpoenas in an effort to help Paul. 30 grand jury subpoenas in an effort to help Paul, the resolution said. Okay, so you're like directing your employees under you to violate the law, to censor information, to, change their testimony to help this guy. You're going out of your way to, have somebody else try to file baseless complaints in favor of Nate Paul. You're protecting his business interests. I mean, this is absolutely insane. Okay, Article 6, Paxton violated his duties of office by firing or retaliating against employees in violation of the Texas Whistleblowers Act, which protects these public employees who make good faith efforts to report potential potentially illegal action. They say Paxton terminated the employees without good cause or due process and in retaliation for reporting his illegal acts and improper conduct. So you have not only like all of these crimes, but then an active cover-up that's going on in which he committed more crimes as a part of that cover-up. They say furthermore, Paxton engaged in a public and private campaign to impugn the employees' professional reputations or prejudice their future employment. So you're also trying to destroy their careers for daring to, I don't know, stand up against brazen corruption that you're engaging in. I mean, this guy is just completely off the wagon. They say misapplication of public resources. Paxton misused public resources by directing employees to conduct a sham investigation into the whistleblower complaints, leading to the Attorney General's office to publish a lengthy written report containing false or misleading statements in Paxton's defense. I mean, how many levels does this go? They say in August 2021, the Attorney General's office issued an unsigned 374-page internal report clearing him of wrongdoing and the allegation made by fired employees. Okay, the trustworthy source. I mean, this reminds me of that article that was posted in the New York Times, and the headline was literally like, CIA investigates itself and finds that it had no link to the crack trade. And it's like, okay, can't exactly investigate yourself and believe that people are going to trust the outcome of that, right? We don't exactly trust the police, right, to investigate themselves and produce a valid outcome to that investigation. They have a bias. They are not an independent source for that kind of information. I mean, so many different other examples we could come up with, but they continue. Disregard of an official duty. Paxton misused his official powers by concealing his wrongful acts in connection with the whistleblower complaints. To settle the whistleblower's lawsuit, Paxton agreed to pay them $3.3 million from public funds. Okay, so this guy's going around being like one of the most egregious criminals you could possibly imagine to protect his buddy, right? This developer or whatever, this real estate guy. And not only that, but then when he fucks up and gets caught and gets, slapped with a lawsuit by his employees for his illegal conduct and then trying to smear them after the fact, then he pulls from public funds, from taxpayer dollars, in order to pay them off. Okay? Insane. They say the agreement conspicuously delayed the discovery of facts and testimony at the trial to Paxton's advantage and deprived voters of the opportunity to make an informed decision in the 2022 election for Attorney General, which was the most recent election that he won. Okay, so now you're also sort of like engaging in election interference of sorts to protect your own ass. Now, this part of it is also important because this ties directly into Donald Trump and Ted Cruz's defense of this guy. But okay, two more. They say constitutional bribery. Paxton engaged in bribery in violation of Article 16 of the Texas Constitution when he benefited from Paul's decision to employ a woman with whom Paxton was having an extramarital affair. They say Paul received favorable legal assistance from or specialized access to the office of the Attorney General. Okay, so he's helping you deal with you cheating on your wife and having an affair, and then you're turning around and giving him, increased legal assistance or specialized access from the office of the Attorney General. Not some private side thing that you're helping him on a personal level, right? You're using your office. You are using your public power to engage in that. And then they finish off here. Again, constitutional bribery. Paxton engaged in bribery in Article 16 of the Texas Constitution when Paul provided extensive renovations to Paxton's Austin home, and in return, Paul received favorable legal help. So now you're also offering legal help from the Attorney General's office in order to get renovations on your house? I mean, this is completely insane. This is almost at like the Clarence Thomas level, right? So now we get to the conclusion of this, right? So the House voted to impeach him successfully, right? Now, again, that doesn't mean that that's the final step. It's still going to have to go to the Senate, but a little bit of information on that here. They say, defying a last-minute appeal by former President Donald Trump, the Texas House voted overwhelmingly Saturday to impeach Attorney General Ken Paxton, suspending him from office over allegations of misconduct that included bribery and abuse of office. The vote to adopt the 20 articles of impeachment was 121 to 23. All 23 of those were Republicans. Doesn't seem like it was particularly close here, right? And if you can get fucking almost the entirety of the Republicans within a state like Texas to agree that this guy is a rampant criminal who doesn't belong in office, I think it's a pretty open and shut case, right? This isn't like the radical left woke mob or something coming after Ken Paxton. This is his own people, right? So they say the stunning vote came 2 days after an investigative committee unveiled the articles that we just read, and 2 days before the close of a biennial legislative session that saw significant right-wing victories, including a ban on transgender healthcare for minors and new restrictions on public university diversity efforts. Okay, let's just pause for a second and appreciate this is where the Republican Party is at right now. Not talking about healthcare or gun safety legislation or big pharmaceutical corporations ripping off the American people or the military-industrial complex conflicts and all of our foreign, adventures and wars overseas. Okay, not talking about education, not talking about childcare. No, they're talking about transgender kids. Okay, and trying to prevent public universities from engaging in like some diversity efforts. Okay, that's what they're focused on. That's what's considered a conservative dub in today's country. Okay, they say few attorneys general have been as prominent as Paxton, who made a career of suing Obama and the Biden administration. One of Trump's closest allies in Texas, along with Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, Paxton successfully sued to challenge the 2020 presidential election results in 4 states. Interesting. Could that have something to do with this? Okay, so they say here, again, the Texas Tribune, Donald Trump, Ted Cruz denounce effort to impeach Attorney General Ken Paxton. So I'm sure that they're going to simply look at the facts of the case, right? Ted Cruz, especially him having a legal background, right? They're going to look at the facts of the case. They're going to make a sober and honest analysis of the situation, and they're going to refute all of the different, allegations that we just went through there, right? They're going to have actual evidence to prove that it's all nonsense, right? They're going to keep this substantive, surely. They say former President Donald Trump made a late play Saturday to stop the Texas House's push to impeach Attorney General Ken Paxton, blasting it as election interference. They say with less than half an hour until the House was set to consider Paxton's impeachment, Trump took to his social media platform Truth Social to blast the effort, saying, "The rhino speaker of the Texas House, Dade Phelan," we call him Dade Phelan, folks, "who is barely a Republican at all and failed the test on voter integrity," so he didn't want to steal the 2020 election. Okay. He said, "wants to impeach one of the most hard-working and effective attorney general in the United States, Ken Paxton, who just won re-election with a large number of American patriots strongly voting for him." Okay. They say he went on to make clear that he will politically target any House Republican who lets the impeachment move forward. And he said, "I will fight you if it moves forward." Okay, so he's basically threatening all of these Texas Republicans that Trump, the biggest player in the Republican Party nationally right now, is going to come after you. Okay, so I mean, again, how is that going to play into how this follows up in the Senate and we get a potential result from it? So they say Trump is by far the highest profile Republican to come to Paxton's defense. On Saturday morning, we also had U.S. Senator Ted Cruz from Texas, who added his voice to the opposition, calling the impeachment effort a travesty, and Trump's son, Donald Trump Jr., came out against the impeachment effort on Friday. So, I mean, again, what is the argument here? Right? I mean, they have quotes here. Trump, "free Ken Paxton, let them wait to the next election." I mean, the main point here that Ted Cruz was trying to make in some of the interviews that I saw him doing to make this defense work. I mean, obviously Trump isn't even pretending to get into any of the details of the case or anything like that. They're just saying, oh, the people who are bringing these impeachment articles are just like rhinos. They're not real Republicans. They're betraying the movement or whatever. But Ted Cruz's main argument that he was trying to push forward was essentially that, the voters within Texas decided to elect this guy. Okay, and so because they decided to elect this guy in 2022, knowing some of the information about who he was and what he was involved in, that therefore he should get to keep his seat because that's the democratic will of the people. So in other words, they're not even really talking about the actual allegations of corruption or, censoring whistleblowers and targeting them and smearing them or getting, additions onto your house that are paid for by this real estate guy that you're then giving legal help behind the scenes and he's helping you to deal with your affair that you have with your wife, right? They're not talking about any of those things. They're literally just saying, like, because the voters who didn't even know about most of that shit before when they reelected this guy, because he won the most recent election. Okay, so then how do you address any of the different issues that you're bringing up against any other politician, right? I mean, these are the same guy, Ted Cruz thinks that like Biden should be impeached because of like his son Hunter's, corruption that he is engaged with all of these different investments and the job that he got in Ukraine at that energy firm. I mean, they're pushing to impeach Joe Biden over stuff like that, but then they're completely silent, not only when it comes to situations like this, where it's just brazen and open corruption and they're defending their guy, but then also when it comes to things like Donald Trump. I mean, that's the most ironic part. I know I'm sort of like veering off from the Texas part of this, but the most ironic part of the whole like Joe Biden, Hunter Biden corruption thing is that I'm perfectly, as a leftist, like I'm perfectly willing to say like, yes, Hunter Biden, he was trading on his dad's name. We don't know the full extent of it or whether or not Joe Biden was directly involved in any sort of like pay to play scheme or anything like that. There doesn't seem to be any direct evidence for that yet, but I'm perfectly willing to accept that, yeah, it's a corrupt fucking family. Of course they are, just like most of the families within Washington, D.C., but especially Donald Trump and his family. I mean, he literally put his family in the White House. I mean, could you imagine if Joe Biden appointed Hunter Biden to, like, be his Middle Eastern foreign policy guy? I mean, that's what Trump did. He put his son-in-law in charge of Middle East foreign policy, and then, oh, what do you know? This guy, Jared Kushner, ends up getting, like, a multi-billion-dollar influx of cash from the Saudis almost the second that he leaves office, okay? And not to mention Donald Trump and his connections with the Live Golf Tour and all of these other Saudi investments that he has made and profited from with the hotels and so many other examples that we could come up with. I mean, it's just like, it's so brazen. They're just partisan, ridiculous hacks in situations like this, and they're not even willing to, like, entertain the idea that, you know, maybe corruption is something that shouldn't just be like, you know, my party versus your party, and I'm going to excuse corruption from my party because something Joe Biden or something Hillary Clinton. I mean, they have absolutely no principled approach to this whatsoever.
Everyone is saying good Politic guy has the best politics. Believe me, no one does it like him. Believe me, everyone is saying